Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now this is the Dead Space 2023 remake in all its glory. Straight away it's clear that performance isn't perfect. Medium settings on my RTX 3050 PC still causes quite a bit of stutter. It is early days and there's no reason performance won't improve with a couple of patches though, and in comparison to what you're about to see, this is perfection. Welcome to another Gaming Without a Graphics Card video, the series where we look at the performance of new releases using nothing but onboard or integrated graphics. Today's video was unfortunately a bit of a disaster, but I didn't come away completely empty-handed. I tested both the EA Play Pro and Steam versions today and both of them failed to load on most of the hardware I wanted to test. For example, this is as far as I got with my i3-12300 and UHD 730 system. Half an hour later and we were still infinitely loading. The same was said for the Ryzen 7 5700G APU as well, no matter the version of the game. After a quick bit of research, I found a few sources that stated this is a problem with 2 gigs of VRAM. Now APUs like this have the option to set the VRAM manually in the BIOS, and this would apparently potentially fix the problem, but unfortunately neither my Asus AM4 motherboard or my Socket 1700 Intel board have the ability to assign more than 2 gigs to the integrated graphics, and so for now, testing the Athlon 3000G, 5700G and i3-12300 was off the table. Next I tried my tiny Minisforum UM690 gaming PC, which has a Ryzen 9 6900HX and onboard 680M graphics, the most powerful iGPU to date. After tinkering with the BIOS, I can confirm that setting the usable VRAM to 4 gigs manually, despite there being an option to set it to auto, does resolve the issue. Maybe this will be patched in the future, maybe it is by the time you're watching, because I'm not sure if this is going to affect 2GB discrete graphics cards as well. I can't verify anything because I haven't done much testing yet, but let me know if that's the case for you. With the 6900HX and 680M graphics, we still had to opt for low settings, the lowest in fact. I started off with 1080p and ultra performance FSR enabled and everything else within the menus reduced. The game looks, well, you might be better off playing the original game to be honest, but it does run. There is quite a lot of stutter. This is something I experienced with my main rig and it's definitely more prevalent here as expected. Different areas of the game perform so differently to each other as well, with some areas hitting at least 60 FPS and others dropping to the low 30s. For this reason I didn't benchmark it in the traditional sense, as performance is just too inconsistent with this hardware at the moment. Now that's not to say that this isn't playable and still somewhat enjoyable. The dark atmosphere and enemies that take you by surprise are still very effective even with the lowest settings, and that's how you know a game's design is good. If it can scare you while in potato quality, then it's solid. After playing around with the settings some more, I decided to swap to 720p native without FSR and implement a frame rate cap using RivaTuner to try and alleviate some of the issues. I turned VSync off and opted for a 45 FPS lock, hoping this would help us somewhat. It definitely did, though there were still some dips here and there, particularly when moving between areas or when enemies busted out of the walls or up from the ground. It still scared me, but the drop in frame rate before these things happened sort of lessened the effect of the jump scare. Capping the frame rate to 30 FPS actually smooths things out even further, so 720p at 30 FPS might be worth considering even with the powerful 6900HX and 680M iGPU. I think this is still quite impressive considering we don't have a discrete graphics card, but we can actually go even lower in terms of resolution, and this is what I really appreciate about some of these newer releases and the developers behind them. Dead Space, a 2023 remake, has not only an option for 800 by 600, but for 640 by 480. This will definitely resolve a lot of problems for lower end hardware though. Interestingly, some stutters will remain. I thought that was a bit extreme for the hardware at hand, but an uncapped 1024x768 wasn't a bad shout, and playing like this guaranteed 60 FPS most of the time. Tweaking the aspect ratio would probably help as well and stop things looking so stretched. As you can see by the frame time graph, it's not perfect, but it is a lot better, more consistent here to be honest, and it takes me back to the days when I used to game at 1024x768 on a tiny monitor. It's nostalgic for me, and on a 1024x768 monitor, the image would look a lot cleaner. Realistically though, my preferred way to play would have to be at 720p native with the previously tested 45 FPS cap. It's a nice middle ground between 30 and 60 FPS, and the game can stick solidly to it a lot more often than it can at 60 FPS. Performance might get better with future updates, that seems to be the case with a lot of games these days, and hopefully the 2 gigs of VRAM thing will get sorted for APUs as well. But I'll update you if and when that happens. Maybe it already has, maybe it's just me with issues. I'll leave you with this little bit of gameplay now, which is of course 720p with that 45 FPS lock and the lowest settings. FSR is disabled, so this is native. If you're wondering why I'm able to wipe out the enemies so easily, it's because I'm playing on the easiest difficulty. This is mainly for testing purposes, but I'm also ashamed to say I've not played Dead Space before. I don't even think I've started a Dead Space game. After having a taste of it today though, albeit at these settings with low resolutions and less than ideal performance, I am looking forward to playing the game through. Though maybe once it's had a couple of patches applied, because I can't for the life of me shake the stutter right now, even with my more powerful discrete cards. Still, it is mostly playable, and I'd recommend it for sure, especially if you have a powerful modern machine. I do often wonder how often minimum specs are overstated to make up for bad optimization though, but perhaps that's a subject for another video. We've looked at minimum system requirements before, and it's not often, or it's not always, that a game is playable on the stated specs. I think this one will be, but yeah, a Ryzen 2600X or i5 8600 along with a 5700 or GTX 1070 is suggested as minimum here, which is quite a beefy set of requirements, but just let me know how the game runs for you in the comments below, with or without a discrete graphics card, and please let me know if you can start a game with a 2 gig graphics card. Because I've been hearing about some problems, but I shouldn't think that's something that affects a lot of you, but it might affect some of you, and it might not affect anyone else, it might just be what I've heard, but there we go. Not much in the way of varied systems in today's one, but it's nice to see that the most powerful iGPU currently available can handle it relatively smoothly, albeit with a few little stutters here and there. I'll keep an eye on this one, sort of like I did with Cyberpunk, as it progresses through updates and patches, because I really am enjoying it so far, and it'll be nice to see some of these problems ironed out. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, leave a dislike if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.